German Chancellor Angela Merkel is on her way out and her power is waning. But in her typically low-key, no-nonsense manner, the German leader on Wednesday laid out some cold, hard facts on the coronavirus in a way that few other leaders have. To talk to us more about this, we're joined from our Pretoria studio by the German Ambassador, Ambassador Martin Schäfer. Your Excellency, a very good morning. Thanks for joining us today. For quite a while since the outbreak, Germany was recording infections and no reported deaths. And this seemingly made it look like Germany was in control. But the latest number, 5 deaths in Germany. What is the latest response from government?
Well, first of all, good morning to you and to your listeners. I'm glad that I'm here. Indeed, I think nobody is on control at the moment, because we are all in uncharted territory. What is happening in Germany, what happened in China, what continues to happen in China and everywhere else in the world is new to us. And I think we have to be calm, we have to be serene, but at the same time we need to be decisive, resolute and act with reason. And you have alluded to the actions of the Chancellor and of the German government. Indeed, I can tell you now that decisions are being made to make sure that the social distancing, the need for the people to not spread the virus further in order to delay it, in order to give our health institutions the chance to cope with the situation, has brought about new decisions. We just heard that in the capital of Berlin, schools will be closed beginning on Monday. I suppose that in many other of our federal states the same decisions are going to be taken. We do have drastic measures to bring down the risk of the spread of the virus in sports, in the German Bundesliga and elsewhere. And we believe, and we do have some experience in China and elsewhere, that that is a very proper mechanism to bring down the risk or the speed of the spread of the virus.
Your Excellency, you're almost repeating what the Chancellor said about 2 days ago, saying we're playing for time. And this kind of response has created some sort of unease, especially in South Africa as well, where there are that kind of sentiment that the president is playing for time. How safe is this strategy?
Well, we are not playing for time. We are taking resolute measures to make sure that the virus spreads as slowly as is humanly possible. And we do that in safeguarding and respecting the values of a liberal, of a democratic society. So the first thing to do is to educate our people, to tell them what is good for them, what is good for their families, and what is good for society at large. And that is, of course, to do what is necessary in your personal hygiene and to make sure that if you involuntarily carry the virus in you, you make sure that you don't spread it to the people that are important to you. So in a sense, this is also about nation building. This is about empathy. This is about solidarity. This is about standing as one and taking responsibilities as an individual for the whole of society.
What is your response to the sentiment that the Chancellor took too long to respond to a situation that was escalating and running out of control?
Well, I can only repeat for all of us, this is absolutely uncharted territory. The whole thing started in a province in China where the Chinese authorities, because it was uncharted territory, I'm not criticizing anybody, took some time to acknowledge the scale of the problem. We have had now a couple of weeks to prepare ourselves. We do have a little bit of experience with respect to the SARS outbreak a dozen of years ago. And now what we have been deciding in Germany, in France, in Spain, in other countries, and also in China, was impossible to imagine just about a week ago. Just imagine the situation now. The Bundesliga has never been called off before.
Absolutely.
We have never played in empty stadia. That an entire country locks down like we have seen in Italy is something that was unimaginable just about a fortnight ago. And here we are, because we feel that that is the best possible way by respecting our values, by putting the responsibility on the shoulders of everyone to go the right way and to delay the spread of the virus, to make sure that our health institutions, our state authorities can cope with a situation that must not become overwhelming.
Germany is compared to Italy in terms of the quick infection rates. Why do you think this is?
I think when you look at the graphs, when you look at a graph where in terms of the time and the exponential rise of the infections, all the countries are pretty much in the same territory, because the virus is a virus that doesn't make any difference between Italians, Germans, Chinese or South Africans for that matter. It is a virus that attacks a human being irrespective of the color of your skin or the passport you hold. That is it. That, I think, is the reason why it is so important that we react as an international community, as human beings as a whole, and don't make any distinctions there. Now, we have a situation in Germany where the relationship between the number of deaths on the one hand side and the number of confirmed infections is lower than in any other place. I think we have 6 confirmed deaths and something around 2,500 confirmed cases, which comes up to a mortality rate that is less than 1%. I don't think that the German people are healthier than others or more resilient. I think it has to do with the fact that from the beginning in Germany there was a widespread rollout of tests and test kit to make sure that wherever we have a suspicion, we have a test case so that we can detect where we stand. And that is exactly the reason why we decided with the South African government to give them 2.5 million rand just to make sure that they can acquire the test kits they need in order to make sure that, you know, the reaction, the appropriate measured reaction by the South African government to the spread of the virus, which I think is inevitable, but we can delay it considerably by taking informed decision, by knowing what the state of the spread of the virus is. And for that, it is important that people that are in suspicion get the chance to be tested.
Of course, that perennial question about the readiness of your health, of each country's health system. What are your thoughts about Germany's health system and its readiness for this event?
Well, I think we do have a limited number of ICU units. We have a limited number of beds in hospitals, and we see in Italy at the moment how quickly it happens that the health authorities and the hospitals are overwhelmed by the number of people that need treatments. That is the reason why I continue to say and reiterate, we need to make sure that we delay the spread of the virus, so that the health institutions can cope. We have taken decisions that hospitals will get emergency funding to make sure that they can offer more beds to patients than there are at present. We do not have a scarcity at the moment, but we have to brace ourselves for a situation that might decrease. And in South Africa, it's exactly the same. I think what the South African government has done is very commendable. A good preparation has been done. There are hospitals in all the 9 provinces of the country. I do think that private hospitals have prepared themselves also. But here in South Africa also, we have to, if we look at other countries, we have to see that there will be a rise of cases, and we need to make sure that we delay it to the best of our abilities so that the health authorities at large are not overwhelmed by the crowds of people that have a legitimate right to be properly treated in the health institutions of this country, and for that matter in any other country.
So in terms of diplomacy, you're saying that you're working with South Africa in terms of information sharing and practical assistance that you just spoken about. What's the German government's response to US President Donald Trump's assertion that he's implementing a travel ban excluding the UK, but it applies to all the European countries?
Well, let me say something very general. The virus doesn't make a difference between the citizenships or the ethnic origin of the human beings that are being attacked, and I think we shouldn't make a difference. So we are in this together. This is also in testing and trying times, an opportunity for all of us as the international community to stand in solidarity, to support the weakest, to engage in cooperation and not in closing down borders. And we believe, and the President of the European Commission, Mrs. von der Leyen, of the European Union, and also the German government have made very clear that the decision taken by the US President, in our view, is wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's the wrong approach. This is not the moment for nationalism. This is not the moment for egoism. This is not the moment for selfishness. This is the moment for empathy and solidarity. And I am very much convinced, and I'm very optimistic, that we will overcome, that we will make it, that we will win the fight against this virus, if we stand together and not separate ourselves and play games of extremism, of populism, and of nationalism.
As we wrap up our conversation, Ambassador Schäfer, questions are starting to emerge about the economic impacts of this outbreak. What's coming out of Germany in this regard?
Yes, we do have some experience with economic shocks. And in some ways, there's some similarities to the financial crisis in 2008. And the response of the German government was, and I think it was the right response at the time, and I do believe that similar responses will come from the German government over this weekend, is we have to help the companies that obviously are in trouble. We have to help the economy as a whole not to go under the water, and that we do by measures of monetary policy. The European Central Bank has already announced a number of measures that allow companies and banks to distribute more easily credits to companies that are in problems. We have to ease liquidity crisis issues, and the federal government will announce measures. We will have to help companies that have to lay off temporarily workers because simply they don't make the turnover that is needed to pay for them. All of that has been tried and tested in 2008, and I think we will have very bold measures in place, and we do hope that our partners in the European Union and elsewhere, including South Africa, would go that way. Just imagine an airline that has lost 50% of its business simply because people don't travel anymore. There will be a time after the virus, but during the time of the virus, we have to help them to survive very severe economic shocks for them to prepare for the future. And that is exactly what the German government is going to do. And I do believe other governments would follow suit. So on that one, I can tell you also, I am very much convinced we will overcome. This is a time that tests us, but we will come out stronger than before.
Very important conversations to be had there. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning, Ambassador Martin Schäfer, the German representative to South Africa.